Hilary Green got out of her old Volkswagen Polo, puffed the tragic wagon, and closed the door quickly behind her as a blast of cold November air tried to snatch it from her fingers. She put the hood up on her green Parker coat and all but power-walked towards the entrance to Kidlington's Thames Valley Police HQ, trying not to shiver under the icy onslaught. She made her way down into the bowels of the building, where, although a retired detective inspector, she now worked as a consultant for the crime review team, taking a second look at cold murder cases. Giving the desk sergeant a friendly salute as she passed him, he responded in kind, barely breaking stride as he dealt with a gaggle of traffic cops who seemed to have some sort of grievance and were clearly set on trying to get him on side. This week, her new boss, Detective Superintendent Roland Rollo Sale, formally took over the reins of the CRT from acting DCS Stephen Crail, who'd been promoted to head a new team operating at St Aldate's in Oxford. As she headed through the labyrinth of corridors in the basement towards her office, which had once literally been a stationery cupboard, she glanced at her watch a shade nervously, relieved to see that it was still well before 8 a.m. She was hoping to catch Stephen before her new boss arrived, since there were two important things that they needed to discuss in private. One was work-related, but the other was very much more personal. She hastily slung her bag under the desk and shucked off her coat, then retraced her steps, noting that the small shared office where she worked with her team was also empty. Jimmy Jessup, the old former sergeant who acted as her right-hand man, would probably be in soon, though. The CRT was a low-priority department, and thus more subject to budgetary constraints than most. The brass had recently taken to recruiting young civilian consultants who would be content to be paid peanuts in exchange for an apprenticeship of sorts, thereby freeing up fully trained police officers for more active duties. The two currently assigned to Hilary, young goth Wendy Turnbull and wealthy whiz-kid Jake Barnes, would probably also be in early, since both were keen and eager to work. Hilary's lips twitched slightly as she contemplated Jake Barnes's ulterior motives for such diligence, and sighed. Ever since he'd joined them in the CRT, she couldn't help but wonder why a good-looking young guy who'd made so much money so fast should be interested in a second career in the police force. Right from the start she'd doubted him, and had since been proved right to do so. But before the day was out, they were finally going to get some answers from that young man, and she could only hope that they were going to be ones that they could all live with. The top brass, not surprisingly, regarded him as their golden boy and something of a PR coup, and Hilary wasn't looking forward to being the one to disabuse them of that fond notion. She tugged down the navy blue jacket of her two-piece suit and smoothed back her cap of dark chestnut-brown hair before tapping on her boss's door. Her lips curled into a slight smile as a familiar voice called for her to enter. Detective Chief Superintendent Stephen Crail looked up as she opened the door and stepped in. What he saw was a woman who had just celebrated her 50th birthday, with an intelligent, pale oval face, large sherry-coloured eyes, and an old-fashioned hourglass figure. It was a figure that he knew very well indeed. As she approached his desk, he could see that her eyes were sparkling, and a small tug at her lips let him know that she was probably up to some kind of mischief. With a sense of pleasant anticipation, he leaned back in his chair and smiled back at her. A tall, lean, dark-haired man, he wore his own elegant navy suit with a casual nonchalance that somewhat belied his sharp mind and steely competence.